Good. What time is it? It's irrelevant. This will be available on demand. No, what time is it? Good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm Peter Bowden. I'm so glad you're here for this session, number 2 in our community group growth ministry, growth and multiplication series. I'm calling it CGX for short, really to just differentiate my approach from what's common small group ministry, covenant group ministry, other group ministry practices within our congregations. For those of you who are new to me, I am a trainer and coach working with congregations across the United States and internationally via online trainings. Lifelong Unitarian Universalist, so most of my work is with Unitarian Universalists. And this series is really based on my decades of work helping congregations develop, implement, launch small group ministries, and troubleshoot them for decades. After doing that work, I got into social media and video and other things as the technology emerged. But friends, this is where my heart is with our group ministry and really using groups to accomplish the work and ministry of your congregation. So say hi, those of you tuning in live, and also afterwards, this is going to be available in the UU Growth Lab, which is my new really community and training hub, innovation center for those who want to work on growing Unitarian Universalist congregations, ministries, and justice efforts with me as I strive, as our world's changing, to figure out, all right, what's working now? There's new tools, there's new platforms, culture's changing. So what's working now? And so that means experimenting, trying new things. And I just found that there's great things that I can do and am doing through training and education and inspiring. But then there's a whole set of things that can be accomplished by my helping clergy in my area and leaders across the world who are interested, really try new things. And so I'm just trying to get a little bit more hands-on with those who want to innovate, learn together, experiment, and grow. So thank you for joining in. We're going to cover a number of systems that you can implement within your congregation's larger system with at the core a community group network. Now I'm saying community group as my generic term for small group ministry groups. Why community groups? Talk about that in session 1, but in short, these are really building blocks for your community. We want everyone to be who's interested to have a way to be in relationship, to be engaged in congregational life. And in our world today where people are hungry for connection and community, and also attitudes towards religion are shifting, the reality is that community is what people are hungry for. So it's a really smart way, I think, to talk about groups within our congregation, groups that are really open to everyone participating in congregational life. So I'm going to talk about leadership, vision, communication, low pastoral care, some logistics, developing session content, and our vision for group life, and really look at your congregation system and your approach to small groups, small group ministry, through our community group approach, CGX, really wanting to help you think about things a little differently, maybe than the model you've been used to. And so I want you to know this session, I'd like to think of it as if I were to sit down with your congregation and we were troubleshooting why are certain things hard? Why are certain things not working? Why aren't groups growing? Why is ministry such a grind? All right. These are things that I've talked about with clergy and leadership teams across the United States over the last 20 years. So let's get into, I went to dinner at that place not too long ago, ending the summer. Those of you who are joining in live, tell me where you're tuning in from and your role. It's great to see you. Tree of Life, our York congregation, Jay Brooks, Emily, Bruce, others. All right, I'm glad you're here. So let's talk vision. I have notes and I have a tablet. Rocking the technology. Ooh, paper, old school. All right, so one of the first things that we can do to help strengthen your ministry, your congregation, your community is to shift from a very traditional model of doing church to a community group centric approach, or we might say community group first. So if you think about a lot of what our time and energy is focused on is, say this is a church, you have your pulpit, you have your lectern, whatever at the front, and everyone comes weekly. Does this look like your church, your congregation? And the minister or other leaders, they get to the front and they preach, they deliver the content, they lead amazing worship, but this is very much directing information, messages at people. Now, we have gone from a world that is top-down, hierarchical, I can do a nicer arrow on that, top-down, to, thanks to social media and technology, everything is more networked, collaborative, decentralized. And so one thing that's happening culturally is when people feel like you're the boss, you're speaking at them, you're delivering the expertise and not weaving in or prioritizing their experience, lifting up their voices, their journey, their process, their relationships, people get out of there quick. So we need to get rid of that more like facing the pews mindset. And I know worship is important. I'm going to circle back to that later. Kind of thinking of it as a gathering, a celebration of what you're doing through your congregation, through groups, which we could look at as the cells building the living system that is your congregation. So what we want to move to is a system that is not, I went to a church planting boot camp with a really experienced evangelical church leader who said, most congregations, even good-sized congregations, they're designed so that pastor's at the center and is just all relationships and all communication is coming off the pastor. And this is, he called it the hairball ministry model. And so the pew-based model is still really a hairball, but the broadcasting hairball, okay? What's a different approach? Let me just get rid of that. All right. What we want to do is really say, all right, you as a leader, minister, or in a fellowship, someone who's not ordained, but like primary leaders, if you're going to use a group approach to grow beyond your size and really scale your ministry, is that you are in relationship with leaders of groups. You're focusing more of your energy on coaching, mentoring, and supporting leaders of small groups, so our community groups. So each of those circles, they are then leading a group, might be 8 to 10 people, could be fewer on Zoom. And so we have, you're leading leaders. The more you can focus on leading leaders, the more we can start to scale the system so that you have, let me erase that a little bit. So say you have all the leaders that you are working with, all of your small group leaders. They are working with groups. Now it gets to the point where there's only so many people that you can really support and coach and mentor. And so what we want to do is, as you start getting to the point where we're growing groups, we want the people like me, I'm a great example of this, someone who knows how to grow groups and loves mentoring other people. As, say, I've got my small group here, you're mentoring me, and then I'm going to mentor people who I coached and helped start their own group or take over my groups. So as I'm growing, and we talked about this a little bit last time, say that over the course of one period when I was leading groups in my home congregation, my original group ended up being 5 different groups because I went from starting a group to growing it, splitting it, going on to another group, and I just kept moving on mentoring leaders. And then we had a community of groups, 5 groups, all starting from my original group. And so I was the mentor, really, just like a peer coach for all those people. So now imagine if we have a congregation, you have a lot of congregations have small group programs. They get to 10 people, 10 groups and maybe 12, and then the system starts to not thrive. One of the reasons is because we don't have the leadership time to nurture the leaders in a way that's going to really lead to vitality. So in terms of, I want you to think about healthy leadership and growth-oriented structures. We want to move to the point where you, the leader, minister, or central leaders, are mentoring group leaders, and then each of them are supporting a whole network of groups. And I know I'm kind of going between drawing people and drawing groups. But so the notion is that all of a sudden we have this growing system of minister or other leaders, coaching leaders who are both running groups and coaching groups. And when I was studying systems that other denominations are using, other religious traditions, they would get to the point where you have the leader at the top, say clergy, working with lay people to run a small group ministry system. They would be coaching, now I'm getting a little hierarchical, but the group leaders. And then when they got to be coaches, those coaches would end up mentoring other coaches. And eventually you get such a big system that you have the people who are running small groups here. It's totally modular. All the people who are running small groups here, like the ones at your core community where people are participating. Then you've got the coaches up here. And then all of a sudden, you get to the point where this system, those are coaches of coaches. You got 3,000 people in your network, or 20,000, or how many people are in Saddleback Church. And you need a system where you just keep adding layers of sophistication. So think about how if you as a minister or other leader, because I'm in touch with a lot of fellowships, are trying to grow a community group system that can perpetually add more people to your congregation and do vital things like make sure everyone knows each other, sharing their stories, is exploring issues of meaning, purpose, spiritual reflection, all the things we do in our congregations, together working on justice efforts, being plugged into and inspired to engage in congregational life. To keep growing it needs to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So, all right, question. What are the building blocks of nurturing new leaders? A lot of folks in my small congregation protest that they can't or don't know how. So I talked a little bit about that in our last session, which you could check out on how we need to just differentiate between just general groups and growth groups, because not everyone has a heart, mind, or energy for it. All right, and I think I'll do a standalone, like a separate session just on that, going deeper. Okay, so maybe that might be a good thing to do next. Leading growth-oriented groups and the leadership to make that happen. So we want to scale the system. So if your vision is, and that's kind of segueing into vision. Let me just go full screen again. If your vision is, all right, everyone who's interested in our congregation who cares about connection, community, exploring spiritual topics and things that we're exploring in the congregation, if we're trying to get them in community groups, which is where that process happens, and your vision is to identify leaders who grow groups, mentor people, you are gathering those leaders and sharing that vision. But also, in this case, the vision and communication, if that's the vision, when you're preaching, when you're in the pulpit, you're sharing your sermon, and when community comes up, you're mentioning how you're actually getting that done. You're delivering on connection, community, meaning making, and helping people participate in your justice-making efforts through your community groups. So, my vision is that if you use this approach, more like CGX style, people are constantly going to be hearing about what you're accomplishing in your community groups, to the point where some people have been there a while, like, I don't want to be in a group. I'm tired of your community groups. So we have to think about if people don't want to participate, then that's okay. But imagine we can build a congregation of people who really don't want to be in relationship with others and really be engaged in congregational life, or we can build a system where people are thriving, excited, just love being in relationship, engaging in group life. And you know what? Even if you lose some people or some people aren't as happy, prioritizing that is going to lead to a much more engaged and healthy growing system. Let's see. I was checking out questions. Yeah, we can talk more about nurturing leaders and facilitation coaching techniques. Now, when it comes to, hooray, I have an eraser. Let's move to beyond my hairball here. Let's go back to tab. All right. Now, within the system, say we have this small group. That's a messy picture, but say we have, let me just clean up a little bit. Say we have a small group network where, you know, you're leading it with a team of other people here, and you have all these groups. And within every group, there's one or more leaders. All right, and that, so there's our group network. When it comes to vision and vision casting, we want you to be in relationship with those leaders and communicating that vision to them. It happens in your preaching. It happens in church communications where you're constantly holding up that vision and sharing stories of what you're accomplishing through your community and community groups. If you just start saying, whenever you say the word community or our community or our congregation, and just start saying, and our amazing community group program, our amazing community groups, that could be huge for you. But communication-wise, communication is going from you are communicating with your team, and together you are communicating with all of your leaders. If you don't share a vision at least monthly, if not regularly, like constantly sharing the vision for what we're accomplishing, thanking people, upholding successes, people forget what we're doing. And so sharing through your leadership times, whether it's, we have to talk a little bit about leadership gatherings for facilitators, because just expecting everyone to come to one big group meeting every month, that's not working so well anymore. But we can, especially as we differentiate between general groups and growth-oriented groups, that we can be communicating with them, inspiring them, keeping people on mission. Meeting with it. If you had 6 people who are leading 3 different growth groups, and you were meeting with them periodically to share the vision for what's happening in their groups and strategizing and helping to bring people in, that leads to this growing, thriving system. Now, so there's communication also happening within the groups, so that people meeting in groups with members of your congregation, newcomers, friends, they know what's happening in each other's lives. Something I have always done that I find continually is not a practice other congregations, other leaders do, is, I have to finish my highlights, is every single session that I lead, and this is what I've trained others to do, is within my group, at the end of the session, I have printed out announcements. We look at the church bulletin together. We read announcements together. I'm like, all right, now we're closing up. The last part of the group is, hey, all right, so there's some awesome things happening in congregational life over the next week. I am going to be going to the potluck. I'm going to help out here, volunteering with the kids program. But then after the service, there's this awesome thing. And the next week, this other thing. And then the big protest. Who wants to go to that with me? and we have a conversation, I am not just leading a group program where we just talk twice a month for an hour and a half. I'm leading a sub community, a cell of members of the congregation, participants of the congregation, members and friends, because people kind of tend to get in groups before they join, and I'm leading them in congregational life. I am the one who's really guiding and sparking their participation. And it doesn't have to be like, Peter, you're going to be the leader of this group and it's up to you. It's like, no. Just like in your process, ask your leaders to review what's happening in congregational life and share what they're doing. Very simple, but that process invites all sorts of action. So so one thing that's interesting is we have so many communication challenges in our world today. Social media, this. How many communication channels do you have, and do people read it? So the ultimate communication channel is you sharing your vision and opportunities with your group leaders, or just making sure that they get the weekly bulletin. And when they meet in groups, talk about opportunities with their members. And so for the people in our community groups, how do they find out about what's happening in congregational life and the best opportunities for them? Their, say, 2 group leaders are actually facilitating the process. So active facilitation. I love it. That's a little different, right? Now, let's just talk quickly about pastoral care. When you have a system of small groups with healthy leaders who are dedicated to advancing congregational life, they're going to get to know people. So when there's a problem, or I'm going to go highlighter, when there's an issue in a challenge in someone's life, it's like, wrong color. There is a pastoral need. What is it? Oh, they're in the hospital. Well, you guys have probably heard this. Someone in an active small group ends up in the hospital. That small group is on it so fast because they have the relationships, all right? And then they communicate with your team or you, based on how you've coached them to do so. And all of a sudden, that's taken care of. And then there are other pastoral concerns, which they take care of. There are a lot of needs that by being in relationship, like community takes care of a lot of issues. Not all, I know that. But what happens is the ones that are really important for you as a ministry leader, pastor, clergy to take care of, we're finding out about those earlier, and the things that really require your professional attention, your ministerial attention, gets brought to you. And there are fewer people just dropping by to talk to you at church unannounced because they need community and you're using a hairball model. Does that make sense? All right, so that's a little bit just pastoral care. Like as we grow the system, a healthy small group system, community group system, there are a lot of things that the community does to take care of each other. Someone's sick. Oh, well, I'll drive you there. I'll do this. Like all these things that the system, when designed well, takes care of itself. Amazing. Let's talk logistics for a moment. All right. You do need to have a system, and I'm going to talk about this very quickly because this is kind of basic, but we need to have people who are doing, and let me just say that they're people who are going to do the logistics of coordinating, tracking who's in each group. So there's kind of like a registrar functions and data in managing that system. There's also a need to have people who are going to talk about, that's my talk bubble, talk and promote. It looks more like one of those, I'm not going to talk about what it is. My drawing, it needs help. I'm getting used to this. All right, talk bubble. People who are going to talk up that system, we need to identify them. They're different people than the people who are going to do the registration probably. And then there are people who are going to really manage and coordinate and lead with you the spiritual ministerial aspect of the system. So just know that those are different functions. the more we promote groups, and last time we talked about using groups in all sorts of different ways where people aren't participating in programs. I mean, like you don't have to participate in a program to have a group experience. We're creating congregation-wide events that weave in community groups. We're doing this and that, pop-up groups. People are able to experience community group experiences all the time. And because of that, and because you're talking about community groups, every time you mention congregation or community, this system's growing. We need these ongoing coordination. The functions. So we need, let's call it a registrar and just the admin of the system. We need PR, which is people who are going to talk about the system. Then you have your leaders, a coordinating team. So one thing that's something that's come up in my consultations with congregations is that sometimes there's one committee that's the coordinating committee, and they're trying to do admin, PR, managing the ministry of the system. And I just want to, that there's the admin side. There's actually people who are going to be staffing a table, talking about your small group system, your community groups. Then there's who's actually working with you on planning, doing the larger vision for the whole system, like your entire community group program, and the congregation at large, kind of per the other ways that we discussed last time. And then, as he asked, or somebody just asked, there's also the people who are actually leading the individual groups. So we'll talk next about group facilitation, specifically how to lead growth-oriented groups and some of those issues. If you could, in a comment, tell me what would be most helpful for you for us to cover next. We're kind of doing a little emergent curriculum based on what's most helpful right now, given where we are as I'm recording this, it being the beginning of the fall. All right. I want to talk about two more things real quick. Group session content. A lot of congregations are using content on the Small Group Ministry Network website, smallgroupministry.net. Great collection of resources there. There's also membership programs for theme-based ministry. But I want you to know, talking about what you're reading, watching, or listening to. So that'd be a little book, reading, there's an I. And then I'll do a little headphones here. Doot, doot. What people are reading, watching, listening to in their lives, and what are the spiritual, religious, ethical, moral, justice questions being raised, life issues. That is that's a spiritual discipline. There's so much potential to create opportunities. If I was running my own congregation, I'm married to a minister, so I just attend the congregation where she's on staff, working with religious education. I would have people gathering in coffee or at a table, bringing, what are you watching, reading, listening to? Tell us your ideas for sessions, and get the congregation excited to what are the conversations we should be having? Yeah, there's resources, but don't outsource completely that function, because there's magic in having the conversations about what we're exploring in our lives. And then, letting people know, say in a service or other opportunity, other communication, hey, this Sunday in our, during coffee hour, people who are part of helping to lead our community group program, they want you to bring, what are the things that's inspiring you, challenging you? I think watch, read, listen is a great way to frame it, so that we can be thinking about new session topics. So it's crowdsourcing. And then I'm working right now and experimenting with taking that Chat GPT technology and training it how to write session plans to my specification. I'm trying to get to the point where I can just kind of give it here's a quote, here's the nature of the session, write a draft session plan. Getting good, but so like we can be cranking out amazing session plans very easily, very quickly. But there's just great energy there. And then last, I just want to say, small groups in congregations are not just, a program where people go. I mean, or they can be more than just a place where people go twice a month or whatever your schedule to explore, share, reflect, and have it just be that program. I think that there's a larger vision of this being a community group where the people in the group, they are, so they're meeting, but also I'm telling people like, hey, we're going hiking with members of these two other groups. Like we communicated as a team of facilitators, group leaders, and there's interest in hiking up the mountain or going to, here's a little Earth, and Earth is in trouble. We're going to the climate protest. And so through groups, creating different opportunities, or maybe we're just getting together to play cards. A game night, a multi-group, intergenerational family game night where we're inviting not only these 5 groups or 3 groups, but our family members, friends. And so we're creating a larger life around the groups so that when I was doing this, we were constantly getting new group members because when we're doing, and I'm going to wrap this up after this point, when we're going out to brunch with my group and another group and our friends, we're constantly saying, hey, you know what? I was thinking about what you said in our group last Thursday about reincarnation and this and the Matrix movie. And people are like, wait, what small group? And next thing you know, they're in the small group. We're doing a game night with young families and their friends are invited. And it's just about fun, fellowship games, and people in the community are, they're engaging with their friends, families, others, and that together takes our congregation and puts it into relationship with people and their family, their friends, their colleagues in a way that is like engaging these gears. Like all of a sudden, it's not the congregation distinct, but in this deep, meaningful, powerful way. Think about the things that you're trying to do. Like, oh, we need to schedule a game night. Oh, we need, I don't have any more time, but we really need this and that and these other things. We can move a lot of those kind of opportunities to being larger aspects of group life with more self-organization, less administration and time on your part, with even more impact longer term. So, and just on, there's something dinging because there's a little family emergency. So I apologize if you hear that dinging. So there's cross-fertilization. We are sharing our lives with each. So think about that. Our groups are not just a program. We are living out congregational life. For me, for many of you, Unitarian Universalist congregational life. And this is what it's like when you're a member of our congregation and you're in our community groups. Not only are we're making time for some of the most meaningful conversations that people will be having throughout the course of their week, month lives. We are having fun. We are getting out there. We're part of the larger community, the city. We're engaging with all these things with other groups, and our expression of congregational life and just life is so beautiful and dynamic. And think about people being hungry for connection and community. People are like, where's my group? All right. And so we have to share that vision. So we will talk about coming up next, I think, getting into, I want to share my model for this is how I lead groups, structure them, and get into facilitation and some of that support structure, so that you know exactly. There are lots of different ways to do this, but I just want to share my way, which has been very successful. And then I think we can start talking about as you're interested, and let me know as we go in the comments, and feel free to email me. Would it be most helpful to know, like, what are models for certain kinds of connecting events, weaving congregational events, like integrating congregational events with small group opportunities. We'll figure it out as we go. But I just want to say thank you for being here. I just want you to know that I am trying to not lead a cohesive from the beginning, what is small group ministry, all the way up to some more advanced concepts, but being more like, all right, here's some different approaches, bigger picture, that I think if you make some adjustments in your vision and approach to it, can really have a huge impact on congregational life very, very quickly. So we're trying to move fast. And then based on my conversation, interaction with you, we can prioritize, all right, well, now as we're growing this system, how do we make sure it's healthier and weave in different practices? All right, sound good? If you have any questions, let me know. We're going to wrap it up now. And just thank you for your leadership. I hope you're having a great start to this new season. And I look forward to being in touch with you soon. That's it. All right, how'd I do? 6 minutes over? I say these are 30-ish minute sessions. And just so you know, I'm trying to go fast and so that we can like hit the big points, big concepts, and then go deeper as needed. All right, I'll talk to you all very soon. Have a great day.